I am beginning now reading a book entitled Cosmic Journeys by Rosalind McKnight. It is a very good book. She was one of the explorers who worked with Bob Monroe in his Explorer program, where he facilitated people to take these out-of-body journeys in his laboratory. And at the point where this book opens up, he has just died, and she has gotten a phone call about his death. And I'm going to take up here where it says, "As I hung up the phone, the reality of Bob's death began to sink in. I got an empty feeling in the pit of my stomach. Then I remembered my very intense belief that when Bob finished his third book, Ultimate Journey, he would probably return to his lab work, which he loved, and just take the journey. But I didn't think he would take it so soon after the book was written. Only a few months had stood between the 1994 publication date of the last book of his trilogy and his departure on March the 17th, 1995. All week long, my mind was clicking into a life review mode, with experiences I had with Bob flashing involuntarily across my mind. Our relationship went back 24 years to 1971. That was a landmark year for both of us because so many things happened that would create the setting for what was to come. Bob had recently married Nancy Penn. He had just published his classic book, Journeys Out of the Body. After 2 years of marriage, David McKnight and I had moved from the New York City area to the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, where David took a position with the Virginia Community College system. David and I were from Ohio, but had met in New York City at Union Theological Seminary, where we were both working on our Master of Divinity degrees. The biggest thing about 1971, however, was that Bob and I met. What was created through the combination of our energies would read like a science fiction novel, almost too amazing to be true. But a fact I learned in my experience with Bob is that truth is indeed much stranger than fiction. The drive into the 600-acre Monroe Institute complex has always given me goosebumps. I was with Bob and Nancy when they first drove to the property. When we got to the top of the hill where the training center now stands, we were awestruck. I got a Shangri-La feeling as we viewed the layers and layers of mountains for the first time. The one in the foreground, Roberts Mountain, was once part of the Roberts family farm. It was as if it was just waiting for Bob to arrive. Time rolled back as I drove up the road to the Monroe Institute on the afternoon of Bob's memorial service. The day was crisp with a very special atmosphere. A recent cold front seemed to give the blue sky extra depth. A breeze blew my silk dress gently as I stepped out of my car. A young man was directing a steady flow of cars into efficient rows in the field beside David Francis Hall, one of the Institute's main meeting facilities. Not being alert to signs that had been put up to direct people, I walked into David Francis Hall and down the steps, expecting the room to be filled with people. I was surprised to find the room empty, but very elaborately decorated for the reception. Around the room were pictures and memorabilia of Bob and Nancy's life. A large picture of them seemed to pull me directly to it. The reality of Bob and Nancy's passing hit me as I stood there, staring at their picture. I had missed Nancy's memorial service 2 years before. Tears began rolling gently down my cheeks as I absorbed the presence of their powerful energies in the room. A voice from behind me broke my silent communion with Nancy and Bob. "The service is out on the hill behind the building," a lady said as I swung around, startled. She pointed to the basement patio. "You can go through these glass doors. You might as well sign the guest book now because there will be a long line after the service." I thanked her and walked through the doors. I looked at the book where several people had already signed and slowly wrote Rosalind McKnight, ROMC. ROMC was Bob's code name for me. I had been one of his longtime explorers. I felt a sense of pride mixed with sadness as I signed off for the last time. The mesmerizing view again caught me as I walked out of the shadow of the building. Chairs were set in rows facing the mountains. Some people were milling around, others were seated. I was so deeply caught up in my thoughts that I wanted to avoid small talk with friends. So when I saw an empty spot toward the back of the seating area, I slid unnoticed onto a black metal chair that wobbled as I sat down. For about 10 minutes I absorbed the magic of the moment. Then a hush came over the group. The service was about to start. I took a closer look at the program in my hand. A celebration for Robert Allen Monroe, 1915 to 1995. I turned the program over and there was Bob's affirmation. As I started reading it, I was startled by the sound of Bob's voice as it rolled out of a loudspeaker beside me. I am more than my physical body. It was the familiar audio tape of Bob's reading the affirmation. As the taped message continued, I sensed Bob's living presence swirling up over the crowd, as if in flight above us, while the echo of his voice seemed to reach out to Robert's Mountain, to include it in his final benediction. The affirmation Bob's voice was reciting had always been used in his Explorer and other training programs. Almost everyone at this celebration of Bob's life had repeated the affirmation many times before, as I had, but the power and reality of the message struck deep within me at that moment. Bob, now fully in his more than physical body, gave the affirmation renewed meaning as it connected with that more than physical reality of my being. I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. Therefore, I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. Also, I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires. With the Monroe Institute affirmation as a framework, we turn to the amazing story of the incredible journeys I took with Robert Monroe as we explored dimensions beyond physical reality. And so this is what this book is going to be about, and I will begin my next series with Chapter 2, The Laboratory.